Senator Kennedy destroys Adam Schiff. If you don't like America, leave. The air in the congressional chamber was thick with anticipation, the kind that settles over a room when everyone knows something big is about to unfold. The polished wooden desks gleamed under the bright lights, and the low hum of murmured conversations filled the space, as lawmakers, staffers, and spectators settled in for what promised to be a lively session. At the center of it all stood Senator John Neely Kennedy, the Republican from Louisiana, his sharp eyes scanning the room with a mix of calm confidence and a glint of mischief. Known for his quick wit and no-nonsense approach, Kennedy had a reputation for cutting through political noise with a razor-sharp clarity that left his opponents scrambling. Today, he was poised to take on Representative Adam Schiff, a prominent Democrat whose polished demeanor and carefully crafted arguments had made him a formidable figure in Washington. The stakes were high, not because of any single policy or vote, but because this was a clash of ideas, a battle of principles that would resonate far beyond the walls of the Capitol. Kennedy, with his Southern charm and knack for plain-spoken truths, was ready to make his mark. The session began with the usual formalities, gavels, banging names called, and procedural motions dispatched with mechanical precision. But the undercurrent of tension was unmistakable. Schiff, seated across the chamber, had been vocal in recent weeks, pushing a series of proposals that had stirred debate across the country. His ideas, rooted in a vision of sweeping change, had drawn both fervent support and fierce criticism. To his supporters, Schiff was a principled advocate for progress, a man unafraid to challenge the status quo. To his detractors, his policies veered too far from the values that had long defined the nation's identity. Kennedy, ever the skeptic of grand promises, saw in Schiff's rhetoric a disconnect from the everyday concerns of the people he represented. As the agenda moved to a discussion on domestic policy, Kennedy leaned forward in his seat, his fingers tapping lightly on the desk, a sign he was ready to dive in. The chairman called on Schiff first, and the California representative rose with the confidence of a seasoned orator. His voice was steady, measured as he laid out his case. He spoke of systemic issues, of the need for bold reforms to address inequality and modernize the economy. His words were carefully chosen, each sentence polished to appeal to both the heart and the mind. He gestured broadly, his hands slicing through the air as he outlined a vision of a transformed America, one where new policies would level the playing field and open opportunities for all. The chamber listened closely, some nodding in agreement, others shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Schiff's argument was compelling on its surface, a tapestry of ideals woven with data and anecdotes. But to Kennedy, it was a tapestry with too many loose threads, a plan that sounded noble but ignored the practical realities of the people it claimed to serve. As Schiff concluded, the chairman turned to Kennedy, who rose slowly, buttoning his suit jacket with a deliberate calm. The room grew quieter, the anticipation palpable. Kennedy's presence commanded attention not through theatrics, but through the quiet authority of a man who knew exactly what he wanted to say. He began with a disarming smile, his Louisiana drawl softening the edges of his words, but doing nothing to dull their impact. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice carrying effortlessly across the chamber, "I've listened to my colleague from California, and I'll give him this. He's got a way with words. But let me tell you something about words. They're like a good gumbo. They might taste fine going down, but if the ingredients don't hold up, you're gonna feel it later." A ripple of laughter spread through the room, breaking the tension for a moment. Kennedy's knack for folksy analogies was legendary, and he was just getting started. He paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back as he began to dismantle Schiff's arguments with surgical precision. Representative Schiff wants us to believe that his plan is the answer to all our problems, Kennedy said, his tone shifting from light to serious. But let's talk about what his plan really means for the folks back home. The people I talked to, the farmers in Louisiana, the small business owners, the teachers, they don't want grand promises. They want solutions that make sense. Solutions that respect the way they live their lives. He paused, letting his words sink in, his eyes sweeping the room to gauge the reaction. Schiff, seated, now watched with a tight expression, his fingers drumming lightly on the armrest of his chair. Kennedy's argument was grounded in a simple but powerful idea that the values of hard work, personal responsibility, and community were the bedrock of American life. He didn't shy away from acknowledging the challenges Schiff had raised: inequality, economic strain, but he framed them differently. "We don't fix what's broken by tearing down what works," he said, his voice rising slightly. "We don't help people